Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at a really interesting idea about how we understand things. It's from a blog post you found.
That's right. It's called Understanding Through Explanation versus Doing from a blog named The Government of Church.
Okay.
And it really focuses on this contrast, you know, learning intellectually versus learning through, well, living, through community experience.
Yeah, learning by doing versus just hearing about it, it makes you think, doesn't it? Which way leads to real wisdom?
Exactly. And the authors seem to think there's been a pretty big shift in society.
A shift. How so?
Well, the idea is that we used to learn life's big lessons just by, doing them, being involved.
Right, part of the community.
Yeah. But now, the blog suggests we lean much more heavily on formal education, on explanations, even for really basic life stuff.
Hmm. And the post digs into why that might be.
It does touch on it. It
Yeah.
mentions the real pressure we all feel,
Hmm.
education for careers, for financial stability. It's almost unavoidable.
That makes sense. A degree feels like the key to a decent living these days.
It really does. And maybe that pushes the practical hands-on learning aside a bit.
And it's not just jobs, is it? The post gives that example about parenting.
Right. And marriage. Things where maybe older generations learn from family by observing, maybe just muddling through together.
But now we look for courses, for expert advice. It does make you wonder if maybe something valuable got lost there.
It definitely raises that question. And the blog connects this to a sort of older model of learning.
Okay.
Yeah, it paints this picture of the past where learning was just part of the community fabric. You had parents, family, the whole community showing you how things worked.
Uh-huh. Passing down skills, knowledge, just through shared life.
Exactly. And the blog emphasizes the role of, like, the elders in the community.
People with wisdom, experience.
Yeah, offering guidance.
Mm-hmm.
And it also talks about these clear community guidelines, maybe unspoken but understood.
Cultural norms.
Right. And if you stepped out of line, the community itself had ways, sort of natural ways, to guide you back.
Okay. Organic correction mechanisms.
Kind of, yeah. And the blog contrasts that quite sharply with what it calls today's more antisocial and individualistic culture.
Ooh, strong words.
They are.
Yeah.
The argument is that those, let's say, healthier community checks and balances have faded,
And they've been replaced by...
replaced by, well, often paid intellectual teaching, experts, courses, that sort of thing.
It's a stark contrast. The blog then brings in an example, right, about Christ's disciples.
It does, yeah. It points out that, there wasn't a school, no formal curriculum.
Yeah.
Their learning came from just being with Christ, living life alongside him, seeing things firsthand, absorbing his teaching through, well, practical shared moments.
So learning through living again.
Exactly. And the blog argues this kind of learning wasn't just about facts, it went deeper,
Deeper how?
like straight to the heart. It was about transforming their minds, their understanding of how to live, aligning with what the blog suggests is God's intended way for humanity.
Okay, and this leads to the blog's main point about the limits of just knowing stuff intellectually.
Precisely. The idea is that if learning isn't tied to actually doing, to experience, the information kind of gets blocked
Blocked from where?
from really sinking in, from reaching the heart, as the blog puts it. It limits the power of that knowledge.
Right. It doesn't fully transform you.
Yeah. And the blog uses that phrase about being a hearer, but not a doer, leading to being puffed up.
Puffed up, like arrogant.
Sort of, yeah. Like having the knowledge makes you feel superior, but you're disconnected from the messy reality of actually applying it. You lose the empathy, maybe.
That makes sense. And the example you used was loving your neighbor.
Exactly. You can understand the command intellectually, right? Discuss it, analyze it.
Sure.
But the blog argues that unless you actually do the hard work, the often difficult, sacrificial stuff involved in loving people, you don't truly get it.
You don't understand its depth.
Right. And the blog suggests that too much intellectual focus might even make us less willing to do the hard work.
Interesting. So if intellectual understanding alone isn't enough, what does the blog suggest? Where do we go?
Well, it introduces this idea that there is a way, capital W.
A specific path.
It implies that, yes, a path to genuine understanding and meaning. And it suggests there's divine help for those who are truly seeking it.
How so?
It talks about needing a kind of servant's mindset, being willing to let go of our own stubbornness, our preconceived ideas.
Okay, being open.
Yeah. And if you approach life that way, the blog suggests God will provide. Unexpected doors will open.
So it's about attitude and seeking.
It seems so. It frames finding meaning as a journey, a process. Seeking God's kingdom and righteousness is the phrase used.
And this journey leads to?
Deeper understandings. Maybe rediscovering truths we sort of knew but lost touch with.
Ah, so it's not just new knowledge, but maybe remembering or deepening existing knowledge.
That seems to be the idea.
Yeah.
The blog talks about God reminding us, giving deeper understanding, even writing them on our hearts.
Written on the heart. That's a powerful image.
It is. It implies something much deeper than just intellectual knowing.
And then the blog kind of zooms out, right, to the really big questions.
Yes, exactly. It asks point blank, what is life all about? Seriously, what are we doing? What is the point?
Wow. The ultimate question.
The ones we all grapple with at some point, I think.
Definitely. And it lists that typical life path.
Uh-huh. Birth, growing up, school, job, family, fun, aging, death.
The standard script.
Right. And the blog sort of gently questions if that's enough. If that common path truly satisfies our deep need for purpose.
Because mankind has always searched for meaning, right? That's what the blog says.
Absolutely. A reason to live, a purpose. It suggests this is just fundamental to being human.
Okay. And you mentioned it also briefly brings up the way of God's kingdom.
Just briefly, yeah. It mentions that concept, this idea of a biblically based ideal way to live, but it doesn't really unpack it much in this particular post, maybe elsewhere on the blog.
Got it. So wrapping this up then, the core tension the blog explores is really this gap between knowing about something and truly understanding it through living it.
It's exactly between explanation and doing. And it suggests maybe our society is tilted too far towards explanation.
Uh-huh. And it advocates for a return, maybe, to a more experiential path, especially for finding real meaning.
That seems to be the core message, yeah. Seeking the way through active participation, not just passive learning.
Okay. That gives us a lot to think about. So let's turn this back to you listening. Considering what we've just discussed, based on this blog post, where in your life might you lean more on explanation than actual doing?
Yeah, think about it. Are there areas where you mostly read about things or listen to experts, but maybe don't engage directly as much?
Right. And following the blog's perspective, what parts of life, what skills, or maybe even virtues do you feel are best learned, or perhaps only truly learned, through getting your hands dirty through direct lived experience, something to chew on?